when they're tricking us into thinking that acts are laws. Acts are not laws. By their own definition, an act is not a law. Hi everybody on YouTube, it's Rainstorm, and today I wanted to talk about bankers' bonuses, bank charges, peaceful rebellion, about time people wake up, general just economy, because what seems to be happening is the FTSE and the Dow have just inflated massively, and if you look, it's basically when they injected the money. There's more unemployment than there was before. These people are getting paid massive bonuses, while we, if you go like overdrawn by 3p and there's not enough money in there, they'll try to take the money out of your bank and then they'll bounce the payment, and for me for instance they'll charge me £40 a time. So with PayPal are a lot better. If the money is not in the bank account and I try to take it out, it will go, there's not enough money in the bank account, you can't have it. Well, with my bank account, if I've set up a direct debit to pay car insurance or my telephone or something like that, and then what happens is the payment will try to go out, my bank will will bounce the payment, so the insurance doesn't get their payment. Then they'll charge me £40 because I didn't have enough money in there. Now, who in their right mind, do people not care, or do they not really think about it? Or it's about time we all stick together, and we just had enough, because it's time for a peaceful rebellion, people, because things are just not moving quick enough at the moment. People are not waking up, people are not understanding what is happening, and it's about time they do. And on the radio they were talking about, why don't you move into a caravan so you don't have to pay council tax? How about we all do a bit of peaceful rebellion and we say, right, acts are not laws, look it up in Black's Law Dictionary and see what it says, and it says something along the lines of, an act is a legislative rule of society given the force of law by the consent of the governed. So what that means is, and let's go through it, an act is a legislative rule, so it's a rule of society given the force of law, so it's not law itself, it's given the force of law by the consent, that means you and I have to say yes, or we have to consent to it, of the governed. So if I said to you, you have to pay your council tax if you want to. If you want to pay council tax, you pay it. And of course I was talking to my mum, because my mum's quite high up in society, and she goes, well obviously if you don't pay your council tax, that's going to knock on and affect everything else. And what I say to her is, well essentially I have a share in this country. You registered my birth with a corporation, and that means I have a share in this country. Now at the moment Great Britain does make a lot of money, and it has a huge GDP. When you compare it to places like Canada, per population, Canada's only got, what, 20 million people? So they've got a lot more land and resources and stuff to split between their 20 million people. Now in the United Kingdom, we obviously don't have a lot of resources or anything like that, but we do make a lot of wealth through financial things. So essentially, if they want council tax, take the money from my share of what the country is earning, basically, because the country is a corporation. The United Kingdom is a corporation. The City of London is a corporation. I was talking to my mate who lives in London, and he's a freelance cameraman, and what he does stuff for the BBC, he does all sorts of things, he's freelance, so if people need help he'll go and do that. And I was talking to him, I go, you do know the City of London, there's something odd about the City of London, the square mile, because it was never defeated back in when William the Conqueror came over. They never actually got through the City of London, and what happened was the people that were in the City of London later on, they they gave up, they gave up to the William the Conqueror, and they signed a charter. Well, I'm having difficulty trying to find the charter. It's 1075 the charter is supposed to be, but I'd like to see what the actual charter is and what they were actually given as the City of London, because the City of London, like I say, was never defeated. There's something odd about the City of London. And the other thing, I was talking to my mate, I was saying, you do know it's a corporation? He goes, well funny you should say that, when I walk around London I do see the word City of London Corporation. He goes, yeah I do know that. And he goes, but it's something you don't see because it's the wood for the trees, isn't it? It's so blatantly obvious and in your face, and like the truth is better than fiction often. People just dismiss it, they don't see what is there. And of course a corporation is run for profit. That's what a corporation is. It's registered as a business to run for profit. So our whole country is registered to run for profit. And me, because my parents signed my birth certificate or registered me with this company, then I own part of this company. So if they want council tax, take it out of the share of the country. Don't take it out of stuff that I have to earn. So that's my argument with paying council tax. You don't have to pay council tax. You don't have to pay your TV licence. You don't have to pay road duty excise. You don't have to have any of these things. All these things that they think they can put on us, like parking tickets. Well, it's not actually a fine, is it? It's a fixed penalty notice because they can't fine you. If you don't have an MOT on your car and they pull you over, they'll go, right, that's an £80 fixed penalty notice. Right, well, it's not a fine. And what they do is they try to get you to contract, because common law is about contracting. Common law is the law of the land. That is the law. Fundamentally, that is the law. Case law and civil law are put on top of common law. And you must consent, because obviously civil law is acts. And we explained what an act is earlier on. Now, what they tried to do is they tried to get you to contract with them. So when you make a contract with a policeman or anybody, what they then try to do is they try to say, if you ignore them or don't pay the fixed penalty notice, you're supposed to be fraudulent in your contract, because you've signed a contract and you're agreeing that you're going to give them a fixed penalty amount of money. Well, that's how they get you, you see, because common law is do not cause harm and loss to any person or their property, and do not cause mischief in your contracts. So if you make a contract with a policeman or the government or anybody, and then you don't honour your contract, that's how they get you in common law. And when people wake up and understand the difference between what is lawful and what is legal, they're two different things, and they don't tell you this at school. Common law, everybody has heard what common law is, but what is common law? Do you know what common law is? And people don't, because I've spoken to hundreds of people, and you say to them, right, you know this is a common law country, and okay, yeah. Right, well, what is the common law? Well, I don't know. Okay, what's an act? Well, I don't know. What's a statute? I don't know. So why are you following these things that you don't even know what they are, when they're tricking us into thinking that acts are laws? Acts are not laws. By their own definition, an act is not a law. And it's until people wake up, and this is how they've manipulated a controlled society throughout the time. It's about time we have a peaceful rebellion. We want free man on the land. We don't want all these acts and rules and fines and all this stuff that essentially out of your pay each week, how much are you actually getting for yourself? I mean, you get taxed to death straight away. Then from the money you've got left, you might get huge bank fines and stuff. And then, that little bit of money you have left, they then tax you again. So they then go, right, well, anything you want to buy, even though we've already taxed you, we're then going to charge you, at the moment it's 15%, but it's 17.5% VAT. I mean, this is the biggest con in the world. We get here death duty or inheritance tax, so anything over, it used to be £250,000, you have to pay 40% of that to the government. Why does the government have any right to the fact that my parents or their grandparents worked every day of their life, they got good jobs, and then when they got to the end of it they want to pass their wealth on to their children, and then the government thinks they have a right to the money, even though you've paid your tax through your whole life, you've paid your council tax, you've paid your VAT, and then they think, oh, now you're going to die, we'll have a bit of that. It's about time people wake up. It's all about manipulation and control. This is a common law country. That is fundamentally the crux of it. If you remember that this is a common law country, and common law is the law of the land, and acts and statutes are not law, once you can distinguish the difference, things will change. And when you can understand it in words where you can tell it to your mates, and you can, because a lot of my mates, sometimes I don't know what you're talking about, and what you have to do is you have to break it down to layman's terms so people understand, and that's how they've tricked us. The Law Society uses legalese, which is not plain English, to trick us. So the words are complicated enough in English, and then they go, well, legalese, yeah, the words you thought that it meant that actually means something completely different. So if you don't know what legalese is, look it up on the internet. And obviously our money is the same thing, it's just printed bits of paper. So it's all about control, and basically it's all about fear. If people are not frightened, of dying, then you can't control them. It's simple. Once you lose your fear, and once you lose your fear of death, if you're not frightened of dying, no general just economy, because what seems to be happening is the FTSE and the Dow have just inflated massively, and if you look, it's basically when they injected the money. There's more unemployment than there was before. These people are getting paid massive bonuses, while we... Hi everybody on YouTube, it's Rainstorm, and today I wanted to talk about bankers' bonuses, bank charges, peaceful rebellion, about time people wake up, when they're tricking us into thinking that acts are laws. Acts are not laws. By their own definition, an act is not a law. And I try to take it out, it will go, there's not enough money in the bank account, you can't have it. Well, with my bank account, if I've set up a direct debit to pay car insurance or my telephone or something like that, and then what happens is, the payment will try to go out. My bank, if you go like overdrawn by 3p and there's not enough money in there, they'll try to take the money out of your bank and then they'll bounce the payment, and for me for instance they'll charge me £40 a time. So with PayPal are a lot better. If the money is not in the bank account,